The views expressed on the Convo Lounge do not reflect the views of our current employers or our future employers.
All right, y'all, welcome to another episode of the Convo Lounge with your hosts, Amir Anthony, Charbo Shell, and Antonio Crow. And today we're joined by a special guest, my brother, Micheal Sacoto. What up, what up? Mike is currently a K through 14 technical assistant provider for and he's also currently the founder and lead consultant of Career Peaks. And I know this brother as also a former colleague, but a dear friend of mine. And he's also a beloved San Antonio Spurs fan. I have no reason why he's a San Antonio Spurs fan. Go Lakers. Woo! You know what I'm saying? You guys are fighting for that playoff spot. But Mike, thank you for joining us, man. It's a pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you.
Hey.
Wait, so in basketball world, you guys are in the playoffs already?
Yeah, it's going to start.
Wow.
Yeah, we got the playing games.
Well, I mean,
I don't know about Mike's team though.
Wait, you're in the playing games too, right? The Lakers are not solid in the playoffs yet. They have to play 2 games, don't they?
We got to play 2 games. We got to win out, and then we'll solidify at least the hopefully the 6th seed, because we got to have other teams drop down 2 games.
How crazy is that, right? In an era where I grew up watching basketball, the Lakers and the Spurs are like almost a shoe-in every year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now we're fighting just to get in. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Change is constant.
Yep.
Yeah.
How's Golden State doing?
They are fighting for the play-in too.
Okay. And the Wizards?
No, I think that last game they lost, I think that took them out of contention.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Russell Westbrook broke the triple-double record though, so you know.
Yeah.
I heard that. Shout out to Russ.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Mike, we always open up our show with a little bit of fun, and one of our segments that we like to do is a question of the day. So for all of our loungers out there, the question of the day is, who is the funniest comic out right now? Who is the funniest comic out right now? So, you know, there's a lot of comics out there. There's a lot of people like, you could throw out Trevor Noah, you know, with his platform and what he has going on with his satire comedy. But for me, I'm going to go in on Michael Shea, who is currently a writer on Saturday Night Live. He also hosts his Weekend Update, but he has a sketch show called That Damn Michael Shea on HBO Max. And it's just dope because he takes like a variety of different sketches, like talking about racial profiling and unemployment, like all the ills that plague the Black community. And it's like the Chappelle show with a different twist. It's like it's just that whole like same vibe, but it's well written. It's hilarious. You have appearances by celebrities and other actors. It's just good. It had me rolling. So if you're a fan of Michael Shea, check out That Damn Michael Shea. And he got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ooh.
Nice.
Man.
All right, what y'all got? What y'all coming with?
So for me, I'm going to go with Dave Chappelle. I think Dave Chappelle is hilarious. I think he's a genius, a creative genius. I appreciate his work ethic. I appreciate the break that he took. I appreciate how he advocated for himself and took a stand for himself. But in my mind, I feel like we're best friends and I can't wait to meet him in person just so we can like chill and vibe. I just feel like we would have the most random, crazy night and I would only pray that I can live to tell about it. So, Dave, hit me up. We're besties. You just don't know it yet.
You just don't know it yet. That's funny.
What about you, Mike?
Man, I love me some Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart.
Mike. Hilarious. You woke me up on a Saturday for this?
Yeah, Kevin Hart is just he's almost in everything, right? It's almost as if his jokes are not scripted at all whatsoever. It's like you're hanging out with your brother or you're hanging out with your uncle who's just really quick with the jokes, just to clap back really quickly. And I think the NFL draft was last weekend, and he had done a Zoom call just like this with a bunch of, NFL former players, and Tom Brady was there, and a few, retired players and things like that. And his jokes were just coming left and right. And that's just his personality. I just enjoy Kevin Hart a lot. Anything that he does on social media, and things that he just does in person that many times are not scripted. That's just who he is as a person. It just brings laughter and joy into a person's everyday life. So yeah, for me, it's definitely Kevin Hart.
That's dope. That's dope.
So
So I have a couple comics, and I just want to shout out two, and then my favorite one right now. But Country Wayne is doing this thing. Y'all know about Country Wayne?
yeah.
Kind of funny. Then you got Carlos Miller. I just heard about last week. I think he's hilarious. But Mike Epps, I just want to shout out Mike Epps. He's my favorite comic right now. We go back from Friday to just all the movies that he's done with Ice Cube, and then he's in a show right now, The Upshaws, with Wanda Sykes and Kim Fields. And I met Kim Fields when I was a kid. Her and her mom came to my elementary school, so that was really cool. And then I was in the acting class once with Kim Fields' mom, Chip Fields, and so. But my man Mike Epps is like like you were saying, Mike, like your uncle or your brother. Mike Epps is like, he's always on the go, man. He can impersonate your older uncles. That's what's hilarious, because he can impersonate anyone in your family that had you rolling when you were a kid. Like, that's crazy. I love Mike Epps for that. I seen him one night in the club, and I said, "Hey, I heard you was about to play. Richard Pryor." He was like, "Man, get away with me with that shit." I was like,
Well, get away.
Yeah, he was like, "Get away from me with that shit, man." So yeah, Mike Epps, I like Mike Epps.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Oh wait, I have two more since Antonio threw a couple out there. Since we can break the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Tony Rock. I love Tony Rock. I try to see him live anytime we're in the same city. I'll go out and see him, and I've run into him a few times in person. Okay. And he's super down to earth, super personable. So I love him. And then I also love Kev on Stage. I subscribe to his YouTube page. I need to subscribe to his Patreon because he cracks me up. Like, I feel like, again, it's that best friend mentality where he doesn't know we're friends yet. But one day he'll find out that we're besties and we'll work together.
Well, that's what's up. That was a fun segment right there. The comics, we'll also drop in the show notes some of the shows as well. Because I know the Chappelle show is back on, and Chappelle also has a podcast with Talib Kweli and Yasin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so Chappelle is winning, and he's active on his Instagram as well, doing a lot of things that focus on the current events that's been plaguing the Black community. So anyways, we're going to segue. Brother Mike, we're going to talk about a few things, and I'm going to let Shar take on this question because this is one of the questions that she had.
Okay, sure. Well, before we get there, Mike, if you want to just talk about what you've been up to, what you're doing, where you are in the educational realm, and then I'll dive in from there.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to sit here with you three, and it's wonderful seeing Amir again, and thank you for inviting me. So what I've been up to, I guess I'll start in a personal sense first. I recently got engaged to
Congratulations.
Yo.
I love love.
Yes.
Hey,
yes.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Jackie. Congratulations.
Nice.
Yes. So, very fun times in my life right now. I've been running every single day since September 18th, doing a challenge to run at least 3 miles every day for an entire year.
Wow.
And currently today I'm on day 234. I just can't wait to be done. My body's pretty tired.
Yeah.
And I'm also in a PhD program at Claremont Graduate University, just wrapped up year number 4, 3 more classes to go. And then I get to work on what professors call the big book, the dissertation. So that's fun. A lot of moving parts. And also my career is just also on a rise as well. So I guess going into my professional life, as Amir mentioned earlier, I'm the K-14 technical assistant provider for Orange County. And pretty much in a nutshell, what my position is that I'm overseeing and providing assistance to all career pathways in Orange County at the high school level and also at the community college level. But most importantly, ensuring that they don't work in silos, ensuring that they work together to meet all of the workforce needs, not only graduation rates, but just equipping students with the skills, the knowledge needed to be competitive to land a job if they wanted to, or go on to community college or go on to a 4-year based on the industry knowledge that they gain throughout their high school career. So it's I've only been in the role now for about 14 weeks, very new to this role, but it's a role that's similar to what I used to do when I first started my career. So I'm just glad to be, back in this sphere and helping an entire county, helping the entire county's ecosystem, not only in education, but also their workforce and economic ecosystem.
Nice. That's dope. And I think that speaks volumes. I know that, so I work in public education. I work in the kindergarten through high school sector, where we have a new chancellor in Washington, D.C., who implemented a program for our school district where there are pathways for careers for our students. Because I think a lot of times and oftentimes, students go to school because you have to. It's the law, when you're under the age of 18. But you don't necessarily want to go to college. Not everybody, college is not the pathway for everyone. So I strongly believe in workforce development and career development and giving kids technical skills that can give them access to careers, money, or other pathways outside of getting a college degree.
Absolutely. And research shows out there, when students are engaged in a classroom or in a topic, it's because they see a correlation or they're able to connect the dots to the real world. Not just having math, history, or English, but if it pertains to something that they are interested in, they become a lot more engaged and do a lot better. They increase their attendance rate, they increase their graduation rates. As long as what they're learning is applicable outside of that classroom, then you don't have an issue of attendance and engagement. But the way that it's structured now, it's kind of like just learn this new type of math. We're not going to let you know what you're going to use it for. You have to figure that out yourself, which is something I don't entirely agree with. I think more applicable skills and knowledge is something that should be facilitated to students.
Yeah. So I have a career path question for you, Mike.
Ooh, yes.
What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Wow. I guess a race car driver. That was pretty much that was one of the first events that I was exposed to. And also just being a young boy in New Jersey, everyone had nice cars, and we just had them street racers. But I really enjoyed NASCAR at the time, and I really wanted to be a NASCAR driver. And I remember telling my mom that was something I wanted to do, and she said, "Do you want to die?" I was like, "What do you mean?" So yeah, and it was just so funny that she. I don't know how she looked up a video, or if the TV was just playing at the right time, but there was like just a bunch of car accidents. She's like, yeah, that's a race car driver right there. So that kind of killed that dream. But I guess, other than that, I was just going through the motions in the education system. I really didn't know where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be. And it isn't until the past 10 or 11 years where I noticed that my skills in building relationships, my skills in, commanding a room, so to speak, my skills in leadership was something that is desirable in any type of industry. So then from there, I just pretty much had to figure out exactly which industry would help me feel a lot more gratifying in the work that I'm doing. It could have been sales into corporate, or it could have been teacher in education, or it could be where I am right now, where I'm doing a mixture of the both. So yeah, I know it's a long-winded response, but
Great.
to students out there who don't know what they want to be, it's definitely okay. You're at the age where you need to explore.
Yeah.
So yeah, just put yourself in those positions to explore and become aware of various careers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's my other, I don't want to say gripe with the education system, but the system is set up to where kids, I feel like an 18-year-old is a child. A child has to make an adult decision at the age of 18 and pick a major for a career that they're going to do 5 to 10 years down the line. And I look at myself as an example to where I just discovered my purpose 3 years ago at the age of 34. So, and all of the things I wanted to be have changed and evolved. You know what I mean? And there was not a dollar sign that you could have offered me to say like, hey, if you do this, you'll make this much amount of money and you'll be set for life. That just wasn't my path. Like, I'm more of a purpose-driven person, and I'll try to monetize my purpose some way or another. But to say like, at the age of 5, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer and I was going to go to law school and be this great lawyer. That just was not my journey. And I think that we need to take the pressure off of kids to make permanent decisions that may change. And then they end up owing student loan debt down the line for something they don't even give a darn about.
Yep. And I got a bachelor's in kinesiology, and I don't use it at all. Right. I mostly leverage my work experience to where I am today, which is extremely important. And, you know, and I've done a lot of reading in the education system and how, you know, what it's supposed to represent and how it's supposed to prepare a U.S. citizen to becoming a responsible person, and being a contribution to what we have now, which is a worldwide economic competition with other countries, right? But the way that we have it is that starting kindergarten all the way to college, it's only education is being basically promoted to the students, right? And very seldomly do you have time to, again, explore careers. So this is the stage, right? Stage 1, education. Stage 2, college. Stage 3, major. Maybe you'll change your major. And stage 5, that would be career, right? But it'd be, I believe, a lot more effective if we had education, the foundation, which is absolutely necessary, but intertwine that with career exploration and awareness at the same time. And then from there, once you have this idea of what type of career you'd like, you'd pick the college you want to go to, and you'd pick the major that you want to be in, right? Or really pick the major first and ensure that the college that you want to go to has that specific major, for you to be in a specific type of role or career that you want to be in. But that's just not the way it currently is today. Everyone wants to go to the USCs or, you know, to the colleges that have the best football, basketball teams and things like that because of marketing. But they don't necessarily select an institution because of the majors that they have. Some do, but a majority of students don't. Which is a issue in the system in itself, and it's something that definitely needs to be corrected. If not tomorrow, then pretty darn soon.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, phenomenal, as I always say. One thing I gotta ask, Mike, is when you think of the call to leadership and the work that you do you feel, because one, I gotta say, I wish I had someone like that when I was growing up in junior high and high school. Growing up, all I had was, I remember the local sheriff coming in, talking to you to not to do drugs, or then you had, someone coming on behalf of XYZ school, but there was never someone that can take you into a place where these are the skills A through C that you need to follow through to get to that pathway. So my thing is for you is, as a Black man and as a person of color, do you feel that it is important to make sure that there is equity on all levels for all groups? Because I feel like in this pandemic, there are going to be some situations where some children are going to be left behind, unfortunately, due to a lack of certain resources. So this is, your work is super critical right now at this time that we're in for the next generation coming in.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I've heard this quote once before: you can't be what you can't see. And when it comes to people of color, when it comes to young women, and you compare that to the workforce, I mean, we all have one goal, right? Is to live the rest of our life, but most importantly, have some form of depth within that life. And that's usually the workplace and what you want to do. And if schools are not doing a good job ensuring that they're bringing in other speakers rather than sheriffs and things like that, but other speakers that mirror the characteristics, the demographics, the experiences, and the history of the students in that school and that population, then you're pretty much doing a disservice to the students, because they're not necessarily seeing themselves as the physician. They're not seeing themselves as the lawyer, or seeing themselves as a business owner and things like that, which is something that needs to happen, and it needs to happen a lot more. And I think there's a little bit more awareness on that currently today, and especially now that everyone's online. There's so many career platforms out there, from different special groups that students can gain access to, and actually see people who probably grew up in their area and where they are today because of persistence, commitment, and pretty much determination. But at a very young level, you got to be able to see you in a position. And I see that you have Barack Obama, you have Kobe Bryant there, and kids see that, whether they're colored or not, right? They see that, but it hits home for students of color. And I bet you now there's a lot more students who want to be presidents or want to be in leadership positions because of those two people that you have right behind you. So that's extremely powerful. There's a lot of young kids of color who want to be athletes, who want to be movie stars, who want to be singers, musicians. Why? Because that's what they see. Right. So I think as long as we're able to ensure that we provide students with a plethora of career pathways, career journeys, and just exposing them to all these different options rather than just going straight to college, I think is probably the next step that the field of education is going into.
So I have a comment. It might be long-winded, but I have siblings that range, I'm 47, so I have siblings that range up to near 70. So when my older siblings were in school, there was trades in the high schools, auto mechanics, nursing, cooking, culinary stuff. In the 80s, I went to a private high school. It was an all-boy high school. All of my buddies were barbers, right? But we were barbers in the neighborhood, not necessarily trained barbers. And I felt like when I got out of high school, I went straight to college because that is basically what I was told to do, right? But at the end of the day, when I went to look for employment, I was looking to go towards a minimum wage job. Maybe if I had a trade, maybe a barbering license, which I didn't. I was a barber on the porch, so I was getting money like that, right? So maybe if I had this trade that was also implemented in the 60s and the 70s, that would have kind of catapulted me into a small career while I pursue my other dreams. I am a person that I was doing like 10 things at one time. You know what I mean? So having that type of development from K through 12 would have probably catapulted me in a different way when I became 17, 18, and 19. And I think doing the development of the youth, that's God's work because they're our future. So I commend you on that. But what do you have to say based on some of the things that I said to you?
Yeah, I think children, when they're young, they have this entrepreneurial mindset, and everything that they're doing, they want to just learn because of pleasure. It's not necessarily learn because you have to. And as you go along the education system, it becomes more of learn because you have to. It's not you're learning what you want. And I think at a young age, like you stated, as long as the awareness and exploration is there, we're able to better assist our students at a very young age. And you mentioned all the trades. Trades are extremely important to this country. It leads to a lot of backbone work that this country was founded upon. And then you mentioned something regarding being a barber. You know, sometimes there are so many barriers when it comes to that. I have been getting my hair cut by a barber for the past 3 years, and he's not necessarily an officially licensed barber because he has to do a total of 3,000 hours under an apprenticeship to do that, right? Wow, that's almost equal to being a lawyer, right? And it's like, why is there that much barrier? And they have to pay in order to do that. So I mean, and I don't know. When it comes to trades, there's always a lot of tension, and parents don't necessarily enjoy trades because, you know, parents always think that their child are going to become physicians and lawyers and things like that. But the trades are extremely important. But what's most important is continuing to feed that entrepreneurial mindset. You can go into a trade to be a barber. You can go into a trade to be an auto mechanic, construction worker, right? But with that entrepreneurial mindset, you could be the owner of that construction agency. You could be the owner of that barber shop. You could be the owner of an auto shop, which is where Orange County is going now. They're not just doing these trades, but they're implementing business and they're implementing accounting in every single one of them so that students are able themselves see themselves in a management position, which can lead to a bachelor's degree or not. But if they become their own business owners, their own entrepreneurs, then that's good for them too.
So what I'm and this is right in line to what you just discussed there. What I'm sensing here is this, and this is something that you and I would talk about too a lot when we were on campus, Mike, is equity in education, especially for all walks of life, you know, because equitable education is really an issue in America when it comes to public schools. So for someone like myself growing up, I started off in private school, right? And then I went into public school. But at the same time, there were situations where certain things didn't resonate because it didn't speak to me. You know what I mean? So I just feel that it's extremely important that there is equity across the board because let's be honest, college isn't for everybody, right? But if you give a student an opportunity, especially at a young age where they're developing, you can give them those skills, those technical skills where they're learning things about computer software. I mean, heck, nowadays you can get a full degree now. If we used to talk for just designing computer, like video game design. I mean, there's like so many different things that these kids have at their disposal that we have to do a better job in the system to make sure that there's equity across the board. Because every kid can't be 6'5", you know, every kid doesn't have, like you mentioned, the 3,000 hours to be dedicated to go to cosmetology school. They don't have the means and the funds to do that. But if you give them hope and give them opportunities where they can learn how to do grant writing to write for a scholarship and get the pathway to go to the XYZ school, they can learn certain things. So I think that we have to really consider those as huge options for students, because if they're not getting that, then what happens? They're being told, like Antonio said, you got to go to school. What happens if you go to school? You accrue loans. So now, you can't move forward. You're going back because you're digging yourself in a hole. You don't even know why you're going to school. You don't. But if you give them across the board early, you can build them up to be anything that they want to be.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think the other issue that we face in our educational system as well, we speak about in terms of equity, is how education is given to Black kids opposed to white kids, or people of color opposed to white kids. I think about, you know, how we learn, how certain people learn. And we try to pigeonhole people down this lane of, you need to take math, science, history, English. And if a child isn't grasping it, or if they're not retaining the information, or if they're having behavioral issues because they're just not engaged, we try to put that child in a specialized education program where it may not even be a learning disability. It may just be a lack of interest because that child is an artist and thinks differently, So I would love to see it. I hope it happens in our lifetime. Even in the K through 12 systems, in the public school systems, more programs that speak to children who don't learn in the traditional way. And those programs being offered to our kids for free.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I completely agree with you. I think when students are disengaged, or if they have quote unquote behavioral issues in the classroom, it's not all on the student, right? It's how the teacher is instructing. What is the pedagogy? What's the environment that they're setting? But very seldomly do we look at the teacher or evaluate the teacher. It's always, oh, you're not doing good in this subject, so we're going to get you a tutor. Well, maybe the tutor's fantastic and then the student does better, but it's not necessarily because the student needed a tutor to begin with. It's probably because the teacher was just not a good facilitator at that time, or whatever it may be. So I think, that evaluation needs to happen a lot more often. And teachers now are beginning to get evaluated at a higher rate, which also encompass, how many students pass their classes and things like that. So I'm glad to see that. There are a lot of teacher unions that do not like that. They don't appreciate that. But it's something that needs to happen because the ultimate stakeholder here are the students. And if the teacher is not effective in doing their work, then you have a student at risk right there.
Do you feel that, going back to the teachers union, what I'm gathering here is that there's an awareness that there are some issues within the confines of education, especially at the lower level, but do you feel there's a sense of maybe some white fragility? Because students are more, the classroom is more diverse than ever before in America, right? So you're having teachers in that are fighting against teaching these type of things in schools. There are schools that they want to teach white fragility. They want to teach that there is something out there that does exist. And going into, it's mental health awareness month, those can be traumatic situations for young students if they're put in situations where teachers don't know how to identify the needs. And like you mentioned, they'll just say, oh, give this young student a tutor. But why are we giving them a tutor? What are you not doing that is causing that? There's nothing wrong with having a tutor, but are you just doing that? Or are you actually identifying what it is that's holding that child behind?
But what is the element when you bring up the pupil to instructor ratio? Like, that has a lot to do with it also.
And they're changing that in the classroom settings. There are more settings now, and I know that's an initiative in the state of California. Mike, you can probably expand on this as well. But I know they're changing the faculty or the student ratio in a lot of classroom settings, and I think in public schools that means a lot, because if you're having a teacher in the classroom and there's 25 to 30 students, of course there's going to be at least a few in that bunch that are going to probably drift off in certain scenarios. But if you're giving them, because when you're young like that, you're all over the place, and you need that. And I was that young kid at one point where you were just kind of like, whoa, But if you do take that size down, and if you do focus on the things that can help the child with their development, and you allow things to be talked about in these institutions, where it's just not the bare minimum, or if you're just teaching the same old subjects all the time. You got to bring things because kids have more access than ever before. We all come from a different generation than these new kids. They have access to everything. And with all that has happened in this country in the last calendar year, there is so much work to be done in the field of K through 14 because they're seeing these things played out. And I can only imagine, being a teenager or younger and seeing all these things that are happening. Of course, you're going to react, and there's going to be some triggers. So I'm hoping that when things start to come back for these kids, that they do get the help, you know,
Yeah.
need, because that's a lot to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of conversations with. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I've had a lot of conversations with education professionals in Orange County recently. Orange County now is opening their school doors. I think at the current moment, 80% of all schools in Orange County now have, it's almost as if COVID never existed.
Wow.
Not surprised.
Wait, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, Mike. At full capacity or
Yeah, no longer. Now, if a student was, so before they went to full capacity, students opted into a hybrid mode, right?
Yeah.
They did 2 days in school, 3 days online. If the student was in a hybrid mode, they had the option to go either in person 100% or continue in that hybrid mode. But if a student was not in a hybrid mode and was only working from home, all of those students were required to come back on campus.
Required?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're all on campus now. The hybrid students had their choice. But in these conversations with them, they're more concerned about the social emotional, the wellness of the students. That's really what they hope, that the state does not focus on academic outcomes for the next couple of years, that it's more support services that are being given to the students. Of course, instruction is going to happen, but there needs to be some high demand and highly effective support services to be given to the students. Just, there's so many things that us as educators, we don't have the purview for. And we also have not been in the houses of these students throughout this past year and a half. So we don't know what they've experienced. We don't know who they've lost. So I think it's important that becomes the emphasis, as we round up this year and as we kick off next year, which it looks like everyone's going to be 100% on campus. But when it comes to social emotional support, there's a statistic that I do want to share. Instruction's one thing, right? And I'm glad the state of California is looking into, I guess, changing the teacher instructor to student ratio, which is necessary. But now when you look at the counselors, the guidance counselors, the ratio in California is one guidance counselor to 762 students. Wow. 1 to 762. And I'll send you the data report, which to me, it's like, how is a guidance counselor? One, a guidance counselor wears multiple hats. It's not just college, it's also career, it's social emotional. They create the schedule. They have so much on their plate. And yet the average in California, they oversee or are supposed to guide 700 and plus students. And when the ratio, the most effective ratio, according to the American Counselors Association, is supposed to be one student to about 240 something. I mean, one counselor to 240 students. Now you go to other states like Arizona, they're close to 1,000 students for one counselor, which is insane. So when we think about providing the proper resources, the proper support services and emotional support, it's almost impossible to give every single student a tailored fit resource, because they don't have the resources to do that. When you have one person overseeing 700 plus, that's got to be draining.
So this is high school, right?
This is K-12 from elementary all the way to high school.
Okay, so but the majority of schools are not K-12 though. So what I'm gathering is that for one high school of 1,000 students, there's only one counselor.
Yeah. Which is insane. And I'll send the report. When I read that a few years ago, I was like, how is that even possible? Now, there's one high school in Orange County that is bringing that ratio down. And I have to get the name of the high school. They are currently right now, if you know any counselors, They're hiring over 100 counselors for this one specific high school. They're piloting a program where they're able to bring down that ratio to meet the national standard ratio that I just mentioned, 1 counselor to 200 students. So they're putting this pilot program in place for the next 2 years and see what's going to be the outcome of that. And if it's positive, hopefully other schools begin to adopt that model.
Yeah.
So what's the issue with the school districts hiring more counselors? Like, what's the challenge? Budget?
Funding. It's always funding, right?
Funding. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Just to piggyback, working for the school district that I work for, it's a similar case where a lot of our counselors are, I'm sorry, not only do they wear multiple hats, but in the schools that don't have counselors, those the students who need a guidance counselor, they report up to an assistant principal for a certain grade level or a dean. And it's all because of funding. Anytime that budgets get cut, who do you let go of?
So can we describe some of the hats that these counselors wear, please?
So, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Well, there's the academic hat where they assist students with building their schedules. There's also another academic hat where they assist students with applying to colleges and things like that. There's the career hat that they also wear, where they assist students in exploring several different careers. And there's also the socio-emotional hat that they have to identify which students are going through a certain time in their life where they're able to assist them. I mean, that to me, not being in a K-12 level, those are already 4 hats. That's 4 positions in one. And then you multiply that by 700 students, that's overwhelming. But Shar, you
so let me
a lot more.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Antonio.
Let me be transparent. Like the K through 6, I saw counselors after I had fights. After I was suspended, that's when I saw counselors. 8th, 9th grade, 8 through 9, never saw a counselor for nothing. My brother was my academic counselor. In the 9 through 12, I saw academic counselor when I was in the 12th grade. You know what I'm saying? And this is private school. So, I don't even know public school, but my deal was that now we have to add the pandemic into the list that has caused a lot of the youth to lose their loved ones. So now we're dealing with an additional trauma to our K through 14, right? And then it's also traumatic that we are not even in school like we used to be. Like, how can you expect a child to even go to college at this point?
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure on students who have experienced so much, on all students pretty much, right? Because I'm pretty sure the expectation still is when they're in that classroom, what college are you going to? They start hearing that at 11th or 12th grade. It's like, yo, can I just recover first?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about the kids in my school district, which is an urban school district, what they have to deal with, I never had to deal with. So now we have like neighborhood beefs and like kids getting killed and having vigils at the school, and the mental health support team having to not only help them deal with the lost loved ones from COVID, but them losing classmates and having the motivation to still learn under the age of 18. Like, I can't even imagine that level of trauma. But unfortunately, in DC, it happens every day, and COVID made it no better.
Right.
Like, I can't tell you the amount of alerts that we get about kids who died. I'm sorry?
Man. No, I said man. But I have another question. What work is being done to I guess make sure that teachers are successfully earning better wages?
I don't have an answer to that one. I have no idea.
And the reason why I say that, this is even the biggest myth. I don't know if it's a myth or a fact that teachers are underpaid.
Do you know the website Transparent California?
No.
All right. When you get the time, type in transparentcalifornia.com and type in the name of your favorite teacher. Transparent California is an online platform where everyone that works under the government, your salary is posted there. So if you have a high school teacher, you remember their first and last name, you remember the school, the county, they'll pop up. And I think they go as far as back as 2014 is when they started tracking this. You'll see there that mostly the average salary for teachers would range around 50 to 60,000. But then you'll see teachers that are over $100,000. And that's probably because they've been in the district for a number of years, or they hold multiple positions within the district itself. But I know teachers are underpaid, especially for what they're tasked with, right?
Yeah.
Just like the counselors wearing 4 or 5 hats for one position, teachers are the same exact hat, but now they're also playing the parent role.
Yes.
Many times as well. So
yeah,
you could say no matter what, they're underpaid because they take all that work home anyways. So
well, they're underpaid, and they're also in certain instances underutilized, and in some cases uneducated, right? And that's, I think for me, I think the biggest, I guess for me, my question would be, what is the number one biggest challenge for the education industry, not just in the state of California, but on a nationwide scale, especially in the public school system?
Is that an open question or a question for me?
Okay,
well, I'm going to say it's funding. I think going back to what Antonio asked is about teachers' pay. If we keep cutting the funding in public education, we cannot pay staff members. We cannot increase their salary. I know in our school district, our teachers get paid fairly well. They average about $80,000, and they have bonus potential for up to $20,000 a year. So we do pay our teachers very well, but at the end of the day, it goes back to our government cutting educational funding. So when we talk about, and I'm sorry to go on this rampage, when we talk about defunding the police, I would love for the police to be defunded and for that money to be rerouted into our communities and into the educational system.
I thought the lottery was supposed to pour back into education.
A percentage of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how much of it goes into it, because I think for me, that's really what it is too, is like resources, right? So like growing up in my school district, we had access to technology. We were learning about computers and how to utilize Microsoft Office. I've been a Microsoft Office user since junior high school, you know what I mean? But how many students that you grew up with in other school districts that didn't have access to those kind of things? And, growing up in my school district, we had the California Distinguished School flag flying right next to the American flag. But you go to other schools in other counties, you don't see that, right?
Right.
Then I think you realize, okay, yeah, teachers are underpaid, but then I think the big funding issue is also in the classroom setting. So do you think, Micheal, that you're going to see an uprise in parents taking the initiative to pull their kids out and they're going to teach instead, or put them in private schools where they can learn some of those soft skills and they have the smaller class ratio?
I think that will definitely come situational, right? It depends how knowledgeable the parents are to a point that they themselves can teach their students. It also on time, whether or not they both work and they're unable to provide homeschooling. And there's just so many factors, right? That's a really difficult question to respond to. But what I think parents should know, and districts don't do a good job at doing this, is letting the parents know that they basically hold the keys to the city when it comes to education. If they want a specific program, if they want change of curriculum, if they want a teacher fired, if they want a principal fired, If they want a new LCAP, the local control accountability plan, if they want a new plan on how funding is being spent, they can mobilize and actually do that. But in urban communities, you don't see the involvement of parents. You don't see that information being shared. You don't see principals and school districts working collaboratively in the community with the parents. They don't let the parents know that they have that power.
Yeah.
That needs to be more transparently out there. You see it in the wealthy communities. Oh, parents are involved. PTAs, they are helicopter parents.
That's the school district it was for me.
They are there. And it needs to be like that in other areas, if not even more.
So here's my counter to that, right? So you say in the urban community. So here's what I'm about to hit you with. Do you feel the influence of sports kind of skews that? Because my counter can be in the urban community, you have AAU basketball, right? You have all these different factors where kids have those pathways athletically, but if you take the child out and use that energy academically and still keep sports as a forefront, I think that's kind of like another problem too in the urban community.
Well, another issue in the urban community, and my supervisor.
Because it costs money to do that.
Yeah.
I'm bad, yeah.
It's okay. Another issue in the urban communities, and my supervisor brings this to light any chance he gets. Shout out to Dr. Phil, it's my guy. Oh. Working for an urban school district, when you look at the inequities of how the school district views the concern from the urban community, they look at it as a complaint, a nagging, complaining mom. But then when you go to the affluent side or the more affluent areas, it's a concern. So it's how the school district looks at how we're addressing it. If we have this well-written email, it's a concern. But if we get a phone call from a nagging parent, it's a complaint. So it goes back to the inequities.
Yeah.
Perception too.
Wow.
Well, because in our school district, I'll use our school district for example. We have a certain side of a lot of our residents only have an 8th grade education level, right? And they are parenting our students. So they don't have the ability to articulate and advocate for their kids in the same way someone in the upper northwest side who has a doctorate can. Same level of passion, same level of care for their child, but just doesn't have the verbal articulation to do it. So who is the onus on to listen to both parents equally and make sure that they both get what they need?
And well, and I agree. And I think the whole focus on this series is community engagement. Like it's super important to have people in your community that are stand-up citizens that can galvanize a group of people, because the parents are stakeholders in the district. They're stakeholders in the city and in the county. They're paying taxes. They're doing all the things all of that is going towards that area, that community. So I think that's kind of like, to my point is, if that same energy is utilized to put a young, child into a sport where you're paying XYZ money, that same energy can be utilized. And I think it's not done at the community level where you have people who are working in the nonprofit sector that are taking time out to talk to parents and teach them, or not teach them, but just let them know. Like I had that in my community growing up. There was a Black woman named Baina, Muslim woman, sister, grew up in the 70s. She may have been a Panther for all I knew, but she was from the south side of Chicago, and her son and I grew up together. We played ball in the city, but she got all the young Black boys that grew up in Cerritos, and at the time it was quite a lot of us, and she made sure that they kept us involved in sports, but also in community engagement, and we were learning about pathways that can take us into college. We were in tutoring sessions. We were learning certain things that they weren't teaching us in the school, especially knowledge of self as a young Black boy too. So it gave us hope. And I look back at all of us, we are all successful in our own right. Whether it's we have the education or we're doing things in the right way and we're stand-up citizens. We're either fathers or we're doing the things in the right way. But if Baina doesn't do that, then we would have went different directions versus some of my other counterparts. So I commended her. She's no longer with us anymore, but she did a wonderful job in that. But if you have that in your community, and here's the thing, Mike, they don't have to look like us. They just have to have the passion to want to do it.
Right.
And now look at it as a savior complex. We don't need to be saved. Just do your job.
We just need the
Right.
opportunities that others that don't look like us have. And I think it's extremely important that as we navigate out of this pandemic, and I'm not surprised that Orange County is trying to push 80% capacity, because the Orange County was wilding, but that's a
The whole pandemic, they've been wilding.
yeah.
The entire from the start of it.
You know, there is someone. Well, I guess for you, my question is the difference in county, right? Because Orange County is a pretty big county. So you have certain parts of the county, because I grew up not too far away from it, North County versus South. And going back to Char's point about the affluent, and then you have more of the blue collar, side, maybe you're in the North Orange County area. So what is your, do you see differences in the stats? I know you're a stat guy. Do you see the differences in stats when you break it down by the regions or by those counties?
I looked into a few of the schools last week as far as their demographics. I think Orange County is, I don't want to say unique, but they have such a high representation of the Hispanic community that it doesn't matter whether you're in a school district in an affluent community or in an urban community, the Hispanic population is going to take up 70 to 80% of the student demographic. So in Orange County, I would say that most of the schools are pretty much at the same level as far as providing the services. Some do a lot better because if you're in an affluent community, obviously there's higher taxes, there's more money, and you can hire better instructors, you can get more counselors. But in the urban area, not as much taxes, not as much help from the government. So the facilitation of instruction or facilitation of support services are a lot less effective. So I don't know. I haven't been in Orange County for too long to see exactly the characteristics of each of the schools, or at least sub-regionally. But currently at the moment, I think it all depends on how funding is, like Char stated. And the number of taxes that come in. And I don't know. If you get back to me a year from now, I'll be able to have a much deeper and educated response for that question.
Oh, I know you will. There's been many times when I would go in your office and it's like, Mike, I'm just looking up some data. I remember that one time in your office, we were looking at data in Riverside County. When it came to the equity and the education, the differentiation, we broke it down based on ethnicity and the ratio of male to female ratio. It was interesting. So I know you got me on the stats.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that we have to look at is, since we started on the topic of career pathways, is we should begin paying attention as to what career pathways are offered in affluent communities versus those that are offered in urban communities. I used to work in San Bernardino County, and I worked with all of the districts there. And one of the districts was, I don't want to say their name, but the affluent side of the district had the health pathway, and health, you get on that track, you're set to make above minimum wage for sure, right? Even entry-level health positions, you'll make above minimum wage. Whereas the other part of the county, they focused more on construction, engineering, and things like that. And the district had, pretty much separated it like that as a plan. Because students are able to transfer from one district to another, from one high school to another within the same district. I think it's called intertransfer. That was the original plan. So they wanted all the great pathways in the north, and they wanted all the blueprint or blue collar pathways in the south. But what wasn't happening was the intertransfer. Why? Because all the schools in the north were compacted already. They couldn't accept any more students. So the students who wanted health weren't able to go to a health pathway because their school didn't offer it, one, and two, they couldn't transfer because the school who did have it was at capacity.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's another thing we have to look at as well. And that's not all districts, right? There are urban districts that do have health pathways, but then we got to look at how How effective are these pathways? Do students graduate with certifications? Who are the instructors? And are the instructors knowledgeable about the healthcare field or any other field for that matter? So yeah, and it's a
I have a comment also.
Yeah.
It's like a comment and an issue at the same time. So like when you're talking about equity and you're talking about learning skills, one of my biggest issues with academia in my era rather, was if I graduate with a degree in, let's say, marketing from, let's say, Cal State Dominguez, right? Mm-hmm. And Amir graduates in a degree for marketing at UCLA. He studied classes that I didn't study in my undergraduate program. So when he and I go to the same job interview, he's ahead of me because his marketing degree studied global marketing and mine was just urban marketing. So my issue with it, and we have the same degree, my issue is the equity in the way some of the degrees are how can I say, the upper level GEs, if you will. If they're not the same, then I'm not as qualified, I'm not as prepared for the real world. And I think that's a dysfunction. Like, you know what I mean? I pay all this money for school and it happens not, let's just say marketing, but it really happened in the graphic design degree. It really happened because UCLA is way more advanced than, I don't know if you want to speak to that or I don't know. But I have an issue with that, seriously.
Absolutely. And I guess it goes back to the comment I made earlier that students pretty much want to go to the big name schools, right? Mm-hmm. The ones who have the best teams or the ones who are more well-known within the community. Why? Because industry thinks that same way. If, like you stated, you're in the interview, they don't necessarily know the courses that each of these programs have. If you're going to an interview, they'll see that you both have the qualifications, the academic qualifications to get that job, but they know UCLA.
Right. Yeah.
They know that. So they'll pick UCLA over Dominguez Hills unless the person interviewing you is an alumni from Dominguez Hills, right? And then they'll go Dominguez Hills with.
Right.
So that's something that needs to, all the big financial firms out there, they mostly hire from 3 organizations or 3 institutions, and they're all mostly Princeton, Harvard, and Columbia or Yale, because they have one, the best financial programs out there. Yep. But 2, it's because they're all Ivy Leagues.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, you could come from UCLA, but if you're competing against someone from Harvard, you could have gotten the same education, but Harvard is going to win 90% of the time.
Yeah.
That's just a disparity within industry itself. And there just needs to be a lot more partnership and conversation between education and industry. Just level the playing field, because that in itself is an inequity.
It is.
Students can afford to go to Harvard or Yale or Brown, any of those. So
no doubt. Man, this is good. This is good stuff. You know, we can go on and continue on and on about this because it is a huge issue, ongoing thing that's happening. And Mike, we got to say that we appreciate you coming on board and just breaking it down, giving us the data, giving us the crucial things that are affecting our communities when it comes to equity and education, because it is vital that these students have opportunities and they can navigate. So we're gonna go ahead and transition to our other favorite segment. Out of question of the day is our sound off. And Mike, this is just an opportunity to sound off on things that are currently going on or something that's grinding your gears, anything that's on your mind right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick off our sound off. It's gonna actually be a shout out on the theme of education and equity. I just want to give a shout out to all of the graduates because it is grad season. Nice. All of the 2021 graduates. I know I made videos last year around this time for all of our graduates, and I just got to give a shout out to all of them because we're still in this pandemic and talking about the things that we talked about today. I just want to give a shout out to all of the graduates that are graduating the class of 2021. And then one other shout out for my sound off is Felicia Rashad has been named our appointed dean of fine arts at her alma mater, Howard University. So shout out to the HBCUs. That's a big deal right there. Black excellence, you know what I'm saying? So that's my sound off.
Nice. Antonio, Mike, I'm still thinking of one.
Wow, well, my sound off, I know we kind of went in hard with teachers and the education system, but sound off to the teachers, the boots on the ground over this past year and a half. We know education moves extremely slow. And during this pandemic, they were forced to innovate, they were forced to evolve, to better serve our students. Whether or not that service was equitable, we don't know. We can't necessarily measure that. But there are a lot of teachers, a lot of schools, a lot of principals and educational leaders who stepped to the plate. And
sure.
They worked around the clock and pretty much did a 360 in 24 hours to be able to offer students continuous education. So shout out to them at all levels, from K to 14 to the university level. And hopefully this lights a fire where education can continue to innovate as fast as industry. And that's something that's needed. So shout out to all of them. And we hope to continue seeing that sense of urgency and that pride to evolve and to innovate moving forward to better serve our students who are entering a very innovative and fast-paced world.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really good. Yes.
Drop the mic drop. We had to put it. We had to get a mic.
Yeah, that was a mic drop. We should have saved you for last. I'm like,
we're gonna do a mic drop. That's like when you got a talk show and you have that little corner moment to the audience and you tell it to
Right.
you know, like mic drop, mic, mic drop, mic.
Right. Yeah, I think my sound off also, I just want to give a shout out to all the students because they have had to adjust and be flexible, and the parents as well, because they are the other component to this child learning. And when they go to work, they have the expectation that the child will be on the computer. And shout out to the parents that are assisting their children with their learning programs over the internet. So, it's been a big situation that occurred over the last year. And moving forward, just more flexibility. We just want to, applaud all of the people that are, like you said, Mike, that are not giving up on the process, right? Because I'm sure the dropout rate probably heightened, you know what I'm saying? So just, that's my sound off. Salute to the teachers. I want to applaud all the teachers that I had and all of my deficiencies and dysfunctions. So I know today's era of teaching, if they had a student like me, you know what I'm saying?
That's the topic for a whole
K through
right there.
K through 6, I was a rebel. So you know what I mean? So I just want to give that shout out as well.
Yeah, I'll echo the same sentiments of just the teaching. I've seen both sides because I work in the central office. So I've seen the innovative teachers and the back office teams that have come up with ways to pivot and get our students on board for virtual learning. But then I've also seen a lot of turnover in positions for folks who were just like, can't do this. So I want to applaud all of the teachers, all of the school leaders, everyone in the school building that has been able to pivot, especially those educators who have families of their own. I know it could not have been easy. So thank you for your thankless job, really. And the work. You all were the real heroes during the pandemic, along with our medical physicians. Like, I feel like our educators were the real heroes in this pandemic. So thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's what's up. There was a theme with that sound off. So I like that. That's what's up. Well, once again, Mike, we just thank you for joining us. This was wonderful conversation, enlightening, and we hope that our listeners, we call them our fellow loungers, also get something out of this, and we hope all is well with you all. And we're going to continue on this pathway of community engagement and also bring lightness to mental health Awareness Month. So more to come on that. But just real quick, I want to give a couple of quick shout outs on where you can follow us. You can follow us on the Convo Lounge, on Instagram, on YouTube. Check us out for some of the videos and archive videos that we have for some of our episodes. We are on all podcast platforms. So whatever your smartphone, download them all, share with your tribe, share with your people, share with your congregation, share with your classmates, your cohorts, all that. And you can also follow me on my personal IG on the Prosperous One. That is the _prosperous_1. And yeah, that's so I'm gonna pass it to y'all. Shout out to y'all stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I am Char Rochelle on Instagram, char.rochelle. I'm still taking a hiatus and it feels so good. But I am working on a lot of things in the background that hopefully I'll be able to share with you all soon. So exciting things are coming. Hopefully I'll share them on my Instagram, or maybe I'll just share them with my close friends and loved ones in the real world, because I don't miss social at all.
That's cool. And I'm Antonio Crow Clothing on Instagram, and you can follow me at the Convo Lounge, of course. What about you, Mike?
And I'm Micheal Sacoto on Instagram. You can find me at runlikemike_. It's basically my running journey over the past 365 days. But you could also find me on LinkedIn. You'll see a lot of stats that I post on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. I recently just posted one about home insecurity in urban communities. So
yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. I had to. No, yeah. That was a good one, bro. That was a good one. Once again, thank you all for joining us. We hope this episode does bring light to everything. We hope you all are doing well, and peace.
Peace.